Hey everyone, this is Luke with Luke F1 Fantasy coming back at you with another episode on the channel. So thanks again for watching along. Today's video, we're going to just do a quick look at the results of the Imola Grand Prix, see how my teams did, and then dip into some thoughts around our teams, our selections, all that fun stuff, our chip usage here for Monaco as we prepare for race week this Sunday. So I'll go to a little bit of the race preview a little bit later in the video, but what I wanted to do first is sort of jump into the performance of my teams from last week. So my team, as you can see here, which was my main team, scored 172 points. A little bit of a semi-boring build. It had the Piastri, Hajar, Bortoleto, Albon, Colapinto, McLaren, Mercedes. A little bit kicking myself for taking the Mercedes pick after I had pumped up Williams all week and was definitely considering them as a constructor. But nevertheless, this team still did pretty good out there, and got a very small, actually I took a little bit of a loss actually, 42,000. I kind of went down a little bit in the rankings, but nothing too major there. And then interestingly, my Team 3 team actually jumped up quite a bit, and my Team 3 team ended up, I did go with a bit of a differential build with a Williams-Russell build. I had to keep Behrman in from the previous week. I wasn't really wanting to risk the -10 to move him out either. So he did take a budget loss, but I did still score some positive points in 4. But this team, which I've been kind of building up a little bit, has now overtook my Team 1 in the global rank. It's actually up to the top 2.5K. So that's pretty cool. I've got 2 teams in the top 5K right now. But you can kind of see how tight it is really. Like the teams are really separated by 27 points basically, and that can get you an extra, a couple thousand in the global standing. So things are definitely still quite tight around there. So big swings can still happen. But yeah, I'll kind of go into these teams a little bit more detail in terms of budget and what they have a little bit later on in the video. So when we are looking at team selections for this coming week, my first step is always to head into the F1 Fantasy Tools budget builder. Again, can't promote these guys enough with the data and the information that they provide to us in a very timely manner and a very comprehensive manner, easy to use interface website. I've signed up for their elite information as well. But if they are a critical part of the game. So definitely go out and check them out. I'll drop the link in the comments below too. But yeah, let's jump into our budget builder really here. So I've taken a look at this a little bit earlier. I'm sure many of you have already. And things are looking a little bit, well, especially sort of in the B tiers, things are looking a little bit, what I would say, a little bit more promising than they did last week. There's definitely a few more options open at different price points. And so depending on where your budget is, I think there is some upside to be found in a few of your B tiers. So I think there'll be some differentials in team selections and things like that going on this week. You've got anywhere from like a Hulk at 6.2 that has a good chance of increasing by 0.2, all the way up to like a Yuki Tsunoda at 14.6 that can also has a good chance of increasing by 0.2 as well. So definitely giving you some options there. In the A tiers, however, things are sort of really just narrowing down, and that really Piastri is the only really one that's is worth holding. Considerably cheaper than Norris and Verstappen, who are the other sort of main race winners at this time. 6 million cheaper, and is still churning out good points on a week-to-week basis, so only needing -1 to increase, whereas some of the others are getting a little bit more difficult, and especially on a track like Monaco, where scoring is a bit more of a premium, that, Piastri is kind of the no-brainer pick. And we had a little bit of a shake-up in the Tier A constructors. We had sort of Mercedes dropping down to the bottom of the list here in terms of the A tiers and what they need for a large increase of 0.3, largely due to Russell losing points and Antonelli's DNF, which was really unfortunate in his home race. But yeah, we're looking at, certainly it's kind of making us think that, is it time to get off Mercedes? Are they a priority transfer this week? So we'll jump into that a little bit later. And then into the B tier constructors, Williams still sort of leading the way in terms of being a nailed on price increase of 0.6. Kick are still in that category for this week. If you're brave enough to run them, one of those teams that run them last week, they may be thinking about running Limitless this week if they still had them. But if you're still looking on a budget building, you've got other bigger priorities to make. Maybe they still stay in your team. But we've got to sort of getting a little bit less more desirables in the B tiers at this moment in time. So we're going to need to see another couple spike weeks from some of these guys to get them back in our thoughts if we're considering down a single A tier constructor builds. So what I'm going to do for this next section is really talk about 9 of the B tier drivers. And I'm going to kind of throw out Alonso, Behrman, Lawson, and Ocon. I'm not going to talk about them this week. I don't think they're really good plays for this week or for next week. So I'm going to just ignore those. Actually, I'll correct that because Alonso actually might be a consideration for next week. And the reason why is because he looks like he's going to receive another max decrease of 0.5 this week because he's at 5 million and his floor will be 4.5. So Alonso is someone to consider for next week. But the main ones we're going to talk about is basically everyone from Hulk, Gasly, Colapinto, Tsunoda, Stroll, Alex Albon, Isaac Hadjar, Carlos Sainz, and Bortoleto. And so, I put out a tweet sort of earlier on, when did I post it? Yesterday. Yesterday. And I kind of put my thoughts down, and I kind of was trying to figure out these B tiers from what kind of value are they bringing to our teams, and I have them sort of split into a few different categories, as you can see on screen here. So I've kind of got Gasly, Tsunoda, and Stroll as good picks for this week, but they may only be good for this week, and you may be considering selling them next week. I've got 2-week potentials with Hulk, Alex Albon, and Isaac Hadjar. I've got potential buys for next week as Alonso and Sainz. I've got guys you can buy whenever, Colapinto and Bortoleto. And as I said, the Behrman, Lawson, Ocon, I'm kind of just going to run away from them for the next couple of weeks. So why do I put these in these certain categories? Well, let's take the first category of use for 1 week. We took Gasly's score here. He scored 18 in Miami and only 3 in Imola. So in Spain, that 18 is going to be dropped off. And, because it's such a low scoring track in Monaco, that I don't really even see Gasly even scoring 1.2 of his current value, which is 7.6. So, I think he's probably going to score probably close to half of that. So again, 2-3 points is probably going to score. So his average is going to be under the 7.6. And so he's going to need a larger score in Spain to see any type of increase. So I think he's only valuable for 1 week. Same with Yuki Tsunoda, scored 33, which is double his price in Miami, which is a great score. Whenever you can 2x your value, it's kind of like buying you an extra week, or it's like putting 2 scores in 1 week. So with him only scoring 9, he didn't even reach his value of 14.6. You can kind of see that when you kind of stretch these out into 3 race averages, depending on their price point, it gets hard if they're not hitting their value on a given week. Then they need spike weeks to make it up. So the larger these B tier gets, it gets harder for them to see those points on a weekly basis. Unless they're hitting top 10s or they're getting lots of overtakes. And so that's kind of how I like generally look at some of these scores and to sort of see like, are they actually scoring what their value is? So we take someone like Alex Albon. He's had 2 weeks of scores that are higher than his current value, meaning that he's giving himself some room. And so because that's like consistently 2 weeks in a row, even though the 19 drops off, the 18 still stays. And so if he has another good week, he's already sort of bought himself like 5 extra points because he's 5 extra points because he's over 13.4. That is buying him some room that he can continue to be viable for a few weeks ahead. So that's why I kind of think like Gasly, Tsunoda, and Stroll, because they're big points from Miami, are going to drop off. I see them as just 1 week targets, which then means if you're bringing them in, which is great, you're trying to get some upside for this week, you kind of have to know that you're probably going to be taking them out next week as well. So thinking about your team selection for the following week is actually important for this Monaco Grand Prix. Isaac Hadjar is someone that I'm thinking about selling for this week because I think he's going to not reach the 9 points he needs for 0.2. But then he would like drop into like the 4 point something million, probably like, maybe 5.1, maybe he gets to 4.7. But then he's like got the 6 points from Imola, which is higher than his like value. And so again, he's building himself some space and some extra points that again, like another 4, 5, 6 points in Monaco, which could happen if he has a good qualifying. Then he is someone that you could bring in next week potentially. And then Sainz, like I said, like the 0 from Miami is going to drop off, and then he's going to carry this 12 from Imola, which is 3 points higher than his value. So expecting him to be somewhere around like 9.1, maybe 8, probably 9.1, maybe 8.7 going into Spain. And then if he gets, that 12 point is helping to sort of bring up his average there. So I do like the idea of Sainz for next week. Alonso, as we spoke about, he's going to hit his floor this week at 4.5. So he becomes another option that, like, if you're thinking that the upside of Bortoleto is really not going to be there anytime soon, like Bortoleto is great because he's not losing you any budget, but these points to him to see an increase right now is just getting like higher and higher. So he needs to get these like minuses off his score because that's really bringing him down. And so if he starts getting some positive points like 4s, 5s, then he can start to become a person that would have a chance of getting an increase in budget. But he's kind of like stuck in a bit of a holding pattern that like you may want to take someone like swap him out for someone like an Alonso who'd be at the floor at 4.5, but he's coming off a 4-pointer in Imola. So those are sort of my thoughts on the budgets for the B tiers. We kind of talked about A tiers. There's not really much to say. I mean, maybe keep an eye on someone like Hamilton as a differential. He does cost more than George Russell, so you have to see a lot from Lewis and the Ferraris to really consider them. But at 7 points for a 0.1, 29 points for a 0.3, it's probably one of the, it's the third easiest to try and attempt, but that's only really going to be achievable if he really is getting like a second or a third place position and possibly adding driver on the day on top of that. So, but Ferrari and Hamilton could be a good differential play. So for the A-tier constructors, we have McLaren still leading the way. Can't go wrong with them having them in your team. But then the choice of the second constructor is really becoming the most interesting part of fantasy team selections this week. And it's because we have options between Red Bull, Ferrari, sticking with Mercedes, especially for me because I have them, or whether you're dropping down into Williams or more so Williams. I'm not really considering too much of the others at this point in time. So you've got 4 different constructors to play, all at different price points, and they're all going to have, they're all going to increase in budget. Williams is going to increase 0.3 more than the others, but it just really depends on how much points is going to be scored this week in terms of the second constructor. And so I look back into last year's results, and if we sort of like take a look at 2024, and bring that up, and you take a look at the constructors down here, and I'm just going to sort of like sort by the Monaco round here. So I guess what I see is like, Ferrari led the way with 68. I think they got a first and a third, Leclerc winning last year. McLaren, I think they got the second and the fourth. Mercedes, I think they got a fifth and a seventh. I think they split back Max in that one. But then a huge drop off between the fourth place constructor at 13 points. So like almost like a 30-point difference. So like 22 points separates like third and first in the top three, but like 30 points separates, the fourth and the third team. And I wonder how that looks for like, say, like what else was happening that year. So like, I mean, like in Imola the week before, you have 4 really good high scoring teams, and then at the 30-point drop off to the best place next one, which would be fifth in this situation. In Miami, you have like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, like 7 constructors that are getting a decent amount of points, and I guess when you get to that 20-30 gap difference, is more between like the third place team and for like the sixth place team. So what it's kind of telling me is that like actually the points are concentrated more at the top. So if you are, if you get a few teams that are just looking strong and they've got really good, if they are sort of dominating those top 6 spots, and the top 6 spots are just being dominated by 3 teams, then like they're going to collect the most points in that week, and like going for the team who may only finish 4th may, there's going to be a lot of points left on the table there. And so that's kind of like some of my thoughts as I'm thinking about my team selection is really, how are you going to score points in Monaco this week? And I think the points are going to come from, again, picking the right second constructor. If you pick the wrong one, it's going to be where you pick the one that just slips out of the top 4. I think that's going to be quite detrimental to sort of points accumulated for that week. I think that's one thing you consider. But also when you look at the drivers, before I go to the drivers, the other thing to consider is that they have mandated 2 pit stops in Monaco this year to try and shake up the strategies and shake up the pack a little bit. So that does give a little bit of a nod towards the constructors that have been being awarded with pit stop points this year, which would be Ferrari, Red Bull. So those things are definitely going to sort of play a factor, because you give Ferrari 4 cracks at the chain to try and get the fastest pit stop. The record would show that they are going to take away that prize this week. So that's it's actually 10 points. So that could be sort of make or break in terms of seeing how they fare in the constructor race this week. But from a driver perspective, if we look at again sort of the average points for if we look at the drivers. How are drivers going to score points? Well, we already know that Monaco is a low overtake track. It doesn't mean that positions can't be gained, but it's almost like the positions gained, situation is now worth half a point, because they're not getting a point for an overtake and a position gained. The positions gains are probably going to be coming from a combination of maybe a DNF in front of them happens, so they move up a place. That's a race position gained. Maybe from the double pit stops that everyone has to do, maybe that will throw in some positions gain, especially if some of those pit stops are timed, unfortunately and unluckily, and then the safety car comes up, and people are benefiting from when the safety car comes and things like that. And so kind of ultimately say we're not going to be expecting a lot of points from overtakes this week, and if anything, in the bottom 10, positions, like they're going to be sort of, you know, relying on points from positions gained than anything else. So from that note, I'm kind of like probably looking to avoid a top driver that finishes lower down the pack, because I don't think they'll have enough track to basically overtake and make their way up the field. So that's kind of one thing I'm probably avoiding this week. And then, like I said, with those 8-tier drivers, it's maybe looking at to see, can you take a slight upside on one of them, or does one of them have a better chance of hitting their max price increase if they are qualifying a little bit lower down the grid, and just see if they can take, you know, the maximum opportunity from others' misfortune. So those are sort of some of my thoughts as I'm going into team selection here. So let's look at team selection then. Kind of look at what a few options I have, and sort of what I've been thinking is that I think the best way to structure this, or to kind of keep my thoughts sort of in check, is to have some sort of structure to it. So my structure is kind of fortunate this week because I do have 3 transfers to use. I rolled one from Imola, and I have 3.1 in the bank. But the structure I'm talking about is like, let's change the I want to go into this weekend and I want to pick who I think is going to be the best second constructor first, and then see which of the drivers would sort of fit with that build based on what I can afford and where they are looking and how they're looking in practices. And so I could start with the Mercedes build here. And sort of straight off the bat, probably if I was to stick with Mercedes, the one that I would want to change is Isaac Hadjar and remove him out, which leaves me with 8.4. And if I was just to sort of do my one transfer from here, the best B tier driver I can afford with 8.4 million, I believe this week to be either I think it'll be a Gasly. I think I'd be quite happy with sort of that type of team. I think Gasly is looking decent for a price increase. But because I was mentioning that he may only be a 1 week buy, that the other one that I would consider also in here is Nico Hülkenberg. I don't think that's too bad of a pick as well. And that team would be pretty decent for increases across the board too. Mercedes may be the one that you'd like consider maybe the one that's on the fence. So that's kind of like my sort of best Mercedes build. Now the problem with this one is that it really doesn't leave me any room to final fix into a Max or a Lando should Oscar have a bit of a mare. So while this has 2 week potential, I don't like the fact that I'm closing the door on a final fix opportunity. But that would probably be my sort of best Mercedes build. Now, if Mercedes aren't looking great and all of a sudden Max and Red Bull are looking super good again, let's kind of get back to the original team. Again, if I just sort of did the one move here, put Red Bull in, so only leaving me 1 million. And again, because Hadjar's going to lose a little bit of budget this week, I'm inclined to take him out. So again, probably the move is probably taking out Hadjar, leaving me with 6.3. And that really is only forcing me into taking out Nico Hülkenberg, who I'm not too bad of holding because he does have an opportunity for next week to increase as well. But again, this type of build really doesn't give me much room to final fix anywhere. So the only way I can really do that is by taking out Alex Albon, which I'm kind of a bit reluctant to do just because I think Williams are on a bit of a tear. And I do like his 2 week potential as well. But that would leave me with 14.4. One change I could make here would be going in with a Pierre Gasly, again, more likely to get a price increase. Don't mind like a Carlos Sainz in here as well. Yes, he might lose some budget, but I might end up keeping him for a couple of weeks after that anyway. And so he's not too bad of a position here. With it also giving me the opportunity to final fix into Max from here. I can't get into Lando but from here I can. So going with the Gasly actually just helps open that up a little bit more. So that might be more the move to make more sense for this week. So those are kind of some thoughts around those type of builds. And then if you were to look at the Ferrari build, which is actually they're the most expensive out of Red Bull and Mercedes, so they actually make things a little even more harder to do. But even in that team, I would need to take Albon out to be able to afford the Ferrari. And so then you're kind of like still dealing with the Gasly or Hulk type of flexibility. So they're all kind of like the similar builds. You're kind of like throwing in Gasly, Hulk, or sticking with Albon, bringing in each of those constructors. So they're all kind of like similar builds, and all just sort of depends on which constructor is looking like they're going to secure 2 of the top 4 spots, if not 3 or 4 of the top 6. So those are sort of those ideas. Now, like I said, the 4th constructor to think about is Williams, and the Williams constructor. Now, this is obviously considering that they're going to secure 2 of the top 8 spots. Like from a Williams perspective, even 2 of the top 10 spots will be enough for them to see a price increase. But I don't want to lose too many points to the other constructors. So I'm kind of hoping that they're still going to finish 2 cars in the top 6 to make it work, because that means one of the Mercedes, Red Bulls, and McLaren, Ferraris are not getting into that spot. So interesting. What I like about this one is that, let me just go back and stick Albon back in. Because with my 2 transfers, taking Mercedes out, sorry, not Tsunoda, that'll be Albon. But actually what you can see here is that when I take Hadjar out, who's also going to lose a bit of money, leaves me with 16.7 in the bank. And this now gives me the opportunity to put in Yuki Tsunoda. Now, Yuki, as long as he qualifies well, which he's had a couple Q3 appearances in that Red Bull, he's got some experience around Monaco. But should he even get like a top 10 spot and finish in that top 10 spot, he would still get a price increase this week. So having the 2 sort of like, would I say, sort of more premium B tier drivers who you wouldn't be surprised if they made a top 6, top 8 appearance. I think they're both sort of pretty good for top 10s. But if they get in the top 6, top 8, again, there's a really good price increase for both of these. Hopefully, you got Sainz still doing well in the Williams as well. That kind of brings up the points. But I was looking at the budget increase potential of this team. Like, you've got 3 that could increase 0.6 if they. The reason you pick them is because you think they're going to finish top 6, top 8. And if you think they're going to finish top 6, top 8, it means they're getting the big increases. So Yuki at 0.6, Albon at 6, Williams at 0.6. That's like 1.8 there already, plus the 0.6 you'll get from McLaren and Piastri. Like we're back to like a 2.4 million build again. And maybe you want to call it like maybe between 2 and 2.4 just to kind of be on the safe side. Maybe you call it 2.2 million. But it's been a while. It's been a while since we've seen like teams that could get like 2 million budget increase. And so if the stars align, like I think this is my most favorite team out there because of that reason. I think there's good points potential. It's been a while since we've seen a team that can get over 2 million in budget. There are a few out there that could probably do it this week. Like, if you don't have the budget for this type of build, you could even drop this down to a Gasly, even a Hulkenberg, if you really wish. It does leave a lot of money in the bank. You're leaving like 9. Well, me, I'm leaving 9, or I'm leaving 10. So that's why I'm kind of maybe leaning away from it. This type of build, I think, is worth considering because we're struggling last week to sort of see budgets, or the last couple of weeks of budgets increasing more than like 1 million or 1.3. So there's an extra potential for 1 million this week. I think the budget play may be an option. So like I was saying, like you could kind of sort of do like the Gasly or whatever, Hulkenberg, which would then leave me that flexibility to do the transfer into a Max or a Lando if I want a final fix. I can't do it with a Yuki, so that might be something I just like look towards the practices to figure out if I do want to do that. But the other nice one I was looking at for an even bigger potential would be to use my 3 transfers on Williams, Tsunoda. I would, and then sort of use a little bit of this budget left, maybe taking out Bortoletto, and then adding in Nico Hülkenberg as well. So Bortoletto's got no chance of getting an increase this week, but Hülkenberg has a slight chance. And so this one could even reach me a potential of 2.5 million in budget, maybe more, which would be like huge at this point. So I definitely need to check out the practices to see how likelihood it is for these guys to get their increases. But this one actually might be one of my favorite team if I want to go ahead and use the 3 transfers, which is kind of like scaring me a little bit. I kind of want to maybe roll a transfer into Spain just in case I end up getting like 2 DNFs in this team. It's nice to have that third option to sort of maneuver that. But I was looking at what is the get out of jail card if that was to happen. So let's just say like sort of Yuki or Albon or sort of any of these guys DNF'd, because of the way the prices are going, there actually might be a really good get out of jail card, and that would be, you could probably get in as long as they don't DNF as well. But if Yuki is just like he crashes again, or again because he's a 1 week rental, you kind of like take Yuki out at 14.6. And you do actually go in for someone like a Science, and like the budget saving on that would be doable for most teams. So there is a get out of jail card that you could actually do a swap into a decent asset the next week without having to sort of like maneuver things around too much. And then same if you need to do that, but you need to had to go upgrade someone else like a Hülkenberg. Maybe you can take Hülkenberg out, and then you kind of look back into a Pierre Gasly route. Or you kind of stick with the Bortoletto, or because Alonso is going to be at his floor, then Alonso could come in too. So maybe I'm talking myself out of needing to kind of keep 3 transfers in for Spain, because I think from a driver perspective, the ones that we're going to want to target in Spain are actually cheaper than the ones that we're putting in this week. So that helps our favor. But it would be nice to kind of have that third transfer just on the off chance that, you need to make another change out of your constructors, because that's where the third transfer would really come in handy. But so if you're kind of wanting to run sort of like, I'm kind of thinking if I'm kind of wanting to run sort of say like a Yuki, Albon, Hülkenberg, Williams build, I might be sort of saying to myself, maybe I'm committing to running Williams for a couple races. Just so I can avoid sort of having to like transfer them in and transfer them out right away. So Williams are probably going to stick, if I put them in my team, they'd probably stay in my team for a couple more weeks to really sort of ride those price transfers and to maneuver things around with the B tier drivers, whether that's trying to like find 2 or 3 premium ones that are going to increase, or having the ability to also at any point sort of like drop out of that and get back into sort of a more double A tiered build as well, where you can like slip in Russell, and again, probably find like someone like Alonso to sort of join in the mix. So in summary, I think this weekend is all about figuring out who do you feel the most confident in your second constructor, then taking a budget, seeing which drivers you could fit in that will work for this week. Keep an eye on what you can do with your budget in case you want to final fix Piastri out, as well as look at, do you have that ability to just slip back into a Sainz, a Gasly, or a Alonso if things go terribly wrong in Monaco. So there we have it. That's going to bring an end to this video. If you haven't already, please would love you to like and subscribe the channel. Give me your comments on the video. Let me know how this looks, how it feels, how it sounds. Any questions you have around your teams, let me know. Add your budget in there as well, so I can kind of like give a take on what that is looking at. but it really does help the channel to kind of get some likes and subscribes and some comments. And I love to interact with the viewers out there, so keep on coming. Otherwise, I will be back later on this week after free practice 2 with the final thoughts video. So we'll catch you for that one. Otherwise, have a good week, everyone.